Good afternoon and welcome, Sealaska shareholders, to the spring distribution overview. I'd like to introduce Sealaska President and CEO Anthony Mallott.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be here with everybody online. We are recording this, so if you know anybody that's interested in this information, we can share the links after the meeting. But I'll just start by saying again, Gunnar Cheesh for joining us. If this is the first virtual event you've joined, or if you've joined many, it's such a great way for us to reach more shareholders, and we've really been enjoying the interaction and the ability and work of the communications team to create these opportunities for us to conversate and have topics and discussions of importance to our shareholders. My name is Anthony Mallott. Ganak Yuchet Duasauk. My name is Ganak. I am in Juneau. I'm coming here from the virtual setting, but I am physically located in Juneau. So thank the Aquan, Gunachish, Aquan, the original inhabitants of this area of Juneau. We also have the Taku Kwan, whose homelands around the Taku River are also part of the city and borough of Juneau. And of course, thank all of our Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian people from wherever their homelands are, all of Southeast Alaska, where we've lived for over 10,000 years. I will apologize in advance. This whole event is me talking about the distribution. There's some good information, but some of it may sound repetitive. What we're trying to do is just build understanding around important areas of shareholder benefit and make sure that we're answering as many shareholder questions as possible. So any repetition is just to build that understanding, and we hope that we put together some information that is meaningful to you. Before I started, I wanted to reflect on the song we were hearing. That's Get Hone, and it was the either the entry song or the exit song when they hosted Celebration. And Gavin Hudson was the one that penned the lyrics, the meaning of that song. And it's one of my favorite Celebration songs of all time, even though it's a new song. It just feels ancient to me. And Gavin even said, the voice of the ancestors came through him to write that song. But I laugh every time I hear it a little bit, because after my two brothers were at Celebration, and they both came to me separately and said, "Didn't you hear that one part of the song that said Anthony parked the car?" And so the rest of the Celebration, they were calling it the Anthony Park the Car song. But just love what David Boxley, both senior and junior, have done to build up Get Hone, song, the dance, the arts, the language. They are really, really supporting and building and revitalizing everything about their Tsimshian history, ancestry, land, language. So Gunnar Cheesh, to both Davids, and to all the work they do. Given that, I'll go ahead and ask the presentation to be shared and dive right in. I expect to go, let's say 30, 40 minutes, and then we'll have time for Q&A. I believe the communication team will be monitoring the chat and collecting questions. They may answer some questions directly in chat. They may save some for me to answer when we get to the Q&A section. Our starting slide is Sealaska net income since 2013. And we highlight net income because net income has various income sources that all drive different components of Sealaska's distribution. I think we've highlighted that the distribution that went out, that will go out on our distribution date of April 22nd, totals $21.3 million. Very fortunate, and we feel gratitude to be able to distribute that amount of dividends and distributions to our shareholders. And they all come from varying sources. There's investment income that drives the investment portion of the dividend. There's business operations income that drives the operations income component. And there's natural resource 7I sharing from other regional Alaska Native Corps that also play a big portion of the distribution amount. That again totals 21.3 million. And that's just the first dividend distribution of the year. We have our fall dividend distribution as well. But to say that all of that information is included in our net income number, investment earnings, again, business operations, and 7J, I want to set the stage for shareholders to be on the lookout for the 2021 annual report that will provide the audited net income numbers for Sealaska in 2021. We're excited for our annual report to hit shareholder mailboxes and have you dive in and understand income in 2021. I think it will just continue to tell the story that our focus on business operations and the ability for business growth to drive both an increase in dividends and an increase in overall shareholder benefits is something that is really paying off that focus on our business operations. So if we go to the next slide, we'll start getting into some greater details, but still stay a bit high level.
Anthony, is it possible to move closer a little bit to your computer? There's points where you're fading in and out and you're getting into some really, really good information. Thank you.
Oh, and interesting. Okay. I've never had that problem, so apologize. So this slide shows total shareholder benefits, and we've been putting this together for the last few years. You'll see that the main portion of the shareholder benefits is dividends. And this is just the operations and investment dividend. It doesn't include the 7J distribution. But you'll really see that as we grow our businesses, as the business focus of increasing net income, it really has been increasing dividends as well. And so again, if you just look at the blue or the light blue portion, the largest portion of shareholder benefits, you'll see that in 2021, there were close to $20 million in dividends that were paid to shareholders from our operations and the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund. And so I say that's high level because we'll dive into some greater detail of how those dividends are calculated. I do want to point out that you will see a slight decrease in the total shareholder benefit amount from 2020 to 2021, even though dividends increased from 20 to 2021. The main difference is that in 2020, we gave a one-time donation amount to the SHI Arts Campus. Hopefully you can see a little bright orange box there in the middle of the distribution that highlights that one-time distribution. So removing that would decrease the amount. And then the maroon box, which indicates our third-party donations, was much larger in 2020 because we really dove in and gave to many different organizations to help during the COVID pandemic. We've been doing a lot of effort to support our entities and our shareholders through this pandemic. And that was with about 1.8 million in hard dollars to COVID relief 2020 that's not there in 2021. So those are the two reasons why we saw a little decline, but again, highlight that the base of this shareholder benefit structure is dividends, and dividends did increase from 2020 to 2021. So we can go to the next page and really discuss why our benefit structure includes more than just dividends. And this goes all the way back to 1982. 1982 was a time period where Sealaska was producing income from our timber operations. And we wanted to ask our shareholders what were the top priorities for shareholder benefits that they wanted to see from Sealaska. And so we've been asking shareholders that question since 1982, from the first time we ever created positive net income. And the first question was posed to a group of clan leaders, culture bearers, and elders that Sealaska collected in Sitka to describe kind of what they would suggest or recommend. And they said, you know, invest in their children, teach them culture, language, dance. And from that request, there's a great book called Because We Cherish You, and we've highlighted that in recent years as well. The whole concept of Because We Cherish You. Sealaska Heritage Institute was stood up at that point in time, and celebration was started from that first effectively shareholder survey of benefit priority areas. Since that point in time, we've been surveying shareholders consistently. And we just highlight on this page shareholder priorities that have, since all the way back to 1982, have consistently landed in the top 10, top 5, even top priority box of our shareholders. Scholarships and education has always been near the top. Dividends is somewhere in the top 5 consistently. A few years ago, I believe 2016, and sometimes these priorities change in order, but the consistency of them being in the top 10 has always being tracked by us, the board, our communications team. But language revitalization was specifically number 2, I believe, in the 2016-2017 time period. And because it had jumped in priority, the board took action to stand up a $10 million language fund. And that $10 million language fund came from the voice of the shareholders. And now it allows about $500,000 every year to be provided to outside entities and language professionals, language teachers, language organizations to increase the revitalization and fluency of our speakers. And so just one story of how this list is created from our shareholder voice. Our shareholders asked for a burial benefit program. That's always been a priority in the top 10, and the board took action to stand up a burial benefit 4 or 5 years ago. Our arts and culture has always been a significant portion of our benefit structure, all the way back to the Because We Cherish You moment. The bulk of that is to Sealaska Heritage Institute, but we support many programs throughout our homelands and with folks doing the real work, like David Boxley and the culture bearers, the clan leaders, the dance group leaders, the organizations that are putting in the time and effort to increase access to our arts and culture, which is such an important identity marker for all of us, especially our youth. Economic development for our rural communities has always been a top priority. Advocating for Native rights, Native policy priorities has always been a significant area of interest. I'll mention specifically there our traditional way of life subsistence harvesting, the ability to get our salmon and our deer and our other critical species has always been the top policy priority within our advocacy work. And that will continue and does continue to this day. That's all the way from the board level. We pursue advocacy efforts to individuals in charge of policy on a day-to-day basis who work with our communities as well to elevate their own policy efforts. Go to the next page. We have wanted to highlight how important another shareholder priority is the care we take for our elders. I think that has been so consistent across our shareholder base for so long that sometimes we forget that we do have special programs for elders, and we've taken some time to really highlight that to our shareholder base the last couple quarters or last year, actually. So thank our communications team for making sure everybody understands the special elder benefits that we do have. The two main areas is that in 1991, the shareholders actually voted and created an elder settlement trust. And so any elder that turns the age of 65 who had original shares will receive a one-time special payment of $20 per share. So typically that's about $2,000. The $2,000 to all elders who turn 65. And also when you turn 65, you get an extra 100 shares of Class E elder stock that does provide dividends, extra dividends to shareholders. And if we go to the next page, we'll see some of the numbers and how the growth in dividends and some of it, the growth in age of our population, so more of our shareholders turning 65, our original shareholders, you'll see that both the Elders Trust annual payment has grown from $489,000 in 2014 to $686,000 in 2021. And the Class E payments, the dividends, the extra dividends, because this, I'll point out, this does not include the dividend amount that shareholders, the elder shareholders receive from their original shares. This is just the extra payment going to elders. That has grown from 321,000 all the way up to 2.6 million and continuing to grow. So great trend in growth for our elders benefits. And our comms team has put in information on where you can find out more. Our shareholder relations team is very focused on helping our elders understand their benefits and always available to answer questions as well. Go ahead and jump to the next page. Diving into some of the details here. So when we look at our operations, our businesses create operational income that is spelled out in our annual report every year. We subtract the investment earnings of the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund because the dividend that comes from the permanent fund lives in a different calculation that I'll move on to next. But what you get left is income from operations. And we simply take 35% of that total net income averaged over 5 years. And that is the distribution amount. So what we've been highlighting, and I hope you all hear consistently, is that growing our businesses will grow our dividends. And we want to be able to highlight that to our shareholders. Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund is at this point in time, a slightly smaller portion of the dividend from business operations, but it is an important one. It provides just a really solid base of dividends to shareholders that is stable and consistent across time periods. So you can think of that as just the dividend foundation for shareholders. And we grow the principal balance of the fund through investment management and investments in both public and private investment funds and active management. And then 4% every year, we calculate 4% of the total value of the fund to be sent out as dividends to shareholders. So you can imagine as the investment markets increase in value, dividends to shareholders increase in value. The third source is ANCSA Section 7I and 7J. So Sealaska receives a 7I check from other regions who are pursuing natural resource development on their ANCSA lands. ANCSA requires that 70% of that income is shared with all ANCs, both directly to the regional corporations, but then shared with all shareholders and the village corporations through the 7J component. So if Sealaska receives the $10 million 7I check, 5 million of that will be passed directly to shareholders as 7J and village corps. And so if we go to the next slide, we'll start seeing some differences between the operations and Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund dividend and the volatility we may see from the unknown income source of natural resource or 7I, 7J. We've really focused our businesses to be able to grow the operational portion of the dividend. And we will continue to highlight this chart for its stability in growth. I hope we can appreciate we've gone from under $3 a share just as recently as 2016, and through operational and business success, created a growing dividend picture that approached $7.62 in 2021. We just announced the spring distribution. It's $3.93. That's only half of it. There will be a fall distribution, and we trust that we don't know the amount right now, but we're trying to create stable and consistent dividends and hope we will be able to continue to show that stability and consistency. And the stability and consistency is really important as we go to the next slide. And I may jump back and forth really quick. Let's go one more slide, then we can come back to this one. So this is 7J payments from year to year. And there has been some growth from 2005, but in any given year, you can see that there can be big jumps up or down from 7J. We don't control this income. This comes from, at this point in time, two main sources. NANA has the Red Dog zinc mine that produces natural resource wealth for NANA and all Alaska Native Corp shareholders. And the Arctic Slope Regional Corporation has oil royalty streams from their land holdings. Those two sources go up and down based off of both production, royalty calculations, and the value of the underlying minerals and oil commodity that drives these returns. And so while they are a significant portion of shareholder distributions, we would like our operations in Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund dividend amount to be stable compared to the volatility or significant change from year to year you may see in your 7J payments. And we go back one more page, just highlight not only the value, the long-term value of the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund, but also some of our other endowments, the Elders Trust, the Language Fund, the Burial Benefit Program, the Scholarship Endowment. Those are all funded to provide value to current generations and the future generations. And we want to highlight how that works. This is the first time we've used this chart. It may make sense to some. If we need more explanation, we'll continue to work on that. But just think of the original trust balance. Let's say you have $10 million. Under the endowment structure, investment structure that we utilize and have successfully with all of the funds I've mentioned, within a generation, that $10 million through investment income grows to a value of 20.9 million. And over that single generation, shareholders receive 14.5 million in dividends. That's just the current generation, the next 25 years. The value of that 10 million continues to grow. And that's why we highlight that permanent fund and its current balance, scholarship endowment and its current balance will continue to benefit shareholders far into the future, almost in perpetuity, given the way we structure our investments. So over 50 years, that 10 million has turned into 45 million in dividends and now a principal fund balance of $44 million. Just want to highlight that because there's a lot of power in this investment structure, and it really fits our values. Our values all the way from the beginning was Sealaska is supposed to not only benefit current shareholders, but future shareholders as well. And so this structure works well for us. And we'll want to continue to highlight greater information about our investment funds to shareholders as we move forward. We can go to a couple of slides down now. Covered 7J. This is an area because now, as of the last distribution, our Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund and our operations dividend is being paid out of the Sealaska Shareholder Settlement Trust. And the Settlement Trust was stood up by shareholder vote because it has advantages, mainly on the tax side, that mean our income, our investment earnings, when flowed through the trust, leave more for the shareholders than if the distributions were paid from Sealaska. So there are tax benefits at the corporate side that create more for dividends, and then the payment coming from the settlement trust is non-taxable to our shareholders. We have had some confusion this year because we still need to send out 1099s because the April distribution from last year was not run through the settlement trust. That did come directly from Sealaska and did create a 1099 requirement. One other additional piece of information, we want to dive in and make sure everybody understands these. There is no ability to create tax savings by flowing the 7J portion through the settlement trust. So one point of confusion is that urban and at large shareholders or any shareholder that receives the 7J portion of the dividend, they receive that dividend directly from Sealaska, and they receive the dividend from the settlement trust. So we've had some confusion about the fact that you have two dividend checks coming during each April and fall distribution amount. We hope that becomes to be well understood in the future. I just want to highlight that difference, and urban and at large shareholders will continue to get a 1099 and their 7J portion will continue to be taxable. Again, the settlement trust is just not able to shield that 7J tax, but it is a significant benefit for our shareholders. We put together a lot of the analysis and data to highlight that shareholders receive more through the settlement trust than they would directly receiving the dividend from Sealaska. But we've also highlighted that the dividend calculation itself does not change. Operations dividend, the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund, the three bubbles that I just walked you through, those calculations have not changed. We've just moved to what entity distributes that distribution amount. We've highlighted some additional differences. Of course, corporation is still known as Sealaska Corporation. The trust side is the Sealaska Shareholder Settlement Trust. We have directors that oversee the corporation. Our current board of directors is also the set of trustees who manage the settlement trust, but they will put on their trustee hat when they have meetings on the settlement trust. And both a shareholder of Sealaska is also a beneficiary or a unit holder of the trust. So those are direct matches in terms of the terminology you may see in regard to the settlement trust. If we go to the next page, this is just a portion of some of the analysis we've put forward to shareholders. The key is that through the settlement trust, again, more dollars stay in shareholder hands, either in increasing value of Sealaska or increasing dividends, definitely increasing after-tax dividends. Go to the next page. And I think I'm hitting my 30 to 40 minute mark fairly well, and we can move into questions. But because the business income or operations income is so important as a driver to not only increasing dividends, but increasing shareholder benefits overall in all of the areas that our shareholders create. I always want to be able to find the time to highlight our business income, the growth and the focus areas we're operating under. We've been telling the land, food, and water story to shareholders for over 5 years now. The fact that our businesses are in areas that our people care about. And because of that, we can tie a vision of ocean health, that each one of these business areas, in land, we can pursue carbon programs. In food, we can get individuals to eat more low impact protein and support better managed sustainable fisheries for the health of our oceans. And on the hydrosciences or water side, we can clean up our oceans and pursue renewable energy that will decrease the need for greenhouse gas emitting power that is creating some of the significant change we're seeing in our environments, both land and water. And I trust that ocean health is so critically important to people in Los Angeles, to China, to Australia, but we know what it means to us here in Southeast Alaska. We want our salmon to return. We want sustainable opportunities to practice our traditional way of life. We want our homelands to be stable and secure from the effects of climate change. And that's why we are focused. Our shareholders care about it, and the globe cares about ocean health. Those businesses with the ocean health vision provide us a long pathway to work to improve the state of our ocean health and grow the income that benefit our shareholders. More to come. I think the communications team may highlight that we have upcoming community meetings. Of course, our annual meeting, and again, be on the lookout for the annual report that will be in your mailboxes in early May. Gunik Chish, and I look forward to jumping to the Q&A.
Great, thank you for that presentation, Anthony. We have a lot of interest based on the number of questions that we received, not only from Facebook, but on the Zoom chat. So we're going to start with first from Harold Borbridge. It's a two-part question. Does carbon capture require 7J or 7I or 7J sharing? And the two-part of that is, are all regional corporations participating in 7J and 7I requirements?
Yes, so that's a unique question. In our annual report, you'll see that in the footnotes, we've been highlighting the potential for that shareability to occur. We don't believe carbon income is shareable, and so we have not been sharing our carbon income And you may see a change in the upcoming annual report, but nothing that changes the financial picture of Sealaska. Yes, not all Alaska Native Corps have natural resource wealth that they have pursued, but all those that, again, have mineral wealth, oil wealth, timber wealth, as we've shared over $300 million with the other Alaska Native Corps throughout our history. We all consistently share that income. Carbon is just a different, it's not natural resource extraction. It's a different way to use our forests. And we have many different ways to use our forests and our land. And we've pursued those different avenues through the years.
Great, thank you for that question, Harold. The next question is from Cheryl Haas. Are we structuring a carbon neutral way of doing business so that it benefits our investments and earnings?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. The first, with the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund and all of our investments, we've signed on to the United Nations or UN principles of responsible investing. And those principles and information provided by the UN really guide us in our ability to structure our investments to be very environmentally, socially, governance friendly. And so that's a continued work and effort that will always be front and center to us. We stopped all investments in private traditional energy over 5 years ago, and now working to find additional ways to decrease any negative effect of our investment portfolio wherever we may see it. And we got, again, really strong partners like the United Nations to help guide us in that effort. On the business side, just the fact that we've stopped our timber harvest, we have pursued carbon projects, we still have a greenhouse gas footprint. And so internally, we are working to define what our total operating greenhouse gas footprint is and find ways to offset that footprint, if not reduce it altogether. That is a big reason why we are focused on the offshore wind, renewable wind energy development. That is a big, huge area where we can reduce not only our own, but the globe's greenhouse gas footprint, just more renewable energy. We see it in Southeast hydro development, but anywhere where we can get more renewable energy, we want to be able to pursue that opportunity.
Great, thank you, Anthony. And just a friendly reminder for those of you that are tuning in, you're eligible for a prize. If you could just fill out a brief survey that we have, Tasha will share it in the chat there, both in the Zoom and on Facebook. The next question comes to us from Michael Benson. It's, can you clarify, if Sealaska is doing so well, why are the distributions smaller?
I think the data we presented is that the dividends have been increasing. In any given time period, though, you may be thinking about the 7J or the 7J portion that did decline last fall. There was a significant drop in oil prices that decreased the 7I we received from Arctic Slope Regional Corporation. So you saw a smaller 7J portion last fall, and you saw a larger 7J portion in this spring's distribution. But the dividend that we have control of, both the Marjorie V. Young Permanent Fund and the operations income, has consistently been growing. We do face some dilution. So again, I highlighted that dividends from Marjorie V. Young and the permanent fund and the operations income was over $20 million, or was close to $20 million in 2021. We do have new descendant shareholders and new Class E elder stock that is issued every year. And so we may see a time period where increasing dollar amounts actually means less per share, we haven't seen that yet. Both the per share and the overall dollar amount have been increasing significantly since the 2014 time period, and we want to stay focused on that. If there's some specific information where you've seen dividends decline, we can dive into greater detail with you, and you can put that information either in the chat or in emails to any one of us. And I think we can put my email in the address and others as well.
Great, thank you, Anthony. Next question is from Levi Reinhardt. Does Sealaska plan to expand the scholarship fund contributions? And he notes that just encourages us that shareholders do need our support for going to college, and so we have a future in the business.
Thank you. I think we have to. I think the investment structure we have is a great start. And I'll just highlight some of the ways we have increased recently. So the same time period that the language revitalization was the number 2 shareholder priority, education and scholarships was the shareholders' number 1 priority. And so not only at that point in time did we stand up the $10 million language fund, we added $10 million to our scholarship foundation, scholarship endowment. And now the scholarship endowment sits at over $20 million and is providing a far greater amount to not only college-going shareholders, but those pursuing voc tech career opportunities as well. And the board also approved an increase in the scholarship endowment to allow part-time students to apply. So those are 2 recent increases in the scholarship endowment. And I think the board will always see that as the top priority and try to find ways to increase that amount.
Great, there's a lot of questions, and so thank you for all the shareholders that are out there tuning in and for asking your questions. We'll try to get to as many as possible. The next question here we got from Nadine. Looks like she's located in Northern California. Her question is regarding COVID. She's asked, did we use members that live outside of the jurisdiction for a head count to get our COVID money and then disperse it to only local people? I know that we're here to talk about distribution, but that was a question related to COVID funding. Yeah, no,
and we actually received the CARES Act formula was very unique and hard to describe. It was all calculated by the federal government. We had no ability to change that, but every dollar that Sealaska received was open to all shareholders wherever they live. And so we wanted to make sure that was highlighted. We did have to follow the rules, which created a needs-based program. We communicated the program as long and as transparently and as loud as we could to shareholders to make sure no one missed out. We partnered with Plinkett and Haida, who had been distributing their CARES Act funding again to all of their tribal citizens wherever they live. So yes, we distributed every dollar we got in CARES funding, and it went to shareholders wherever they live. The only area of those that may have missed out is those living overseas. And that was a stipulation by the US government that said CARES Act funding can only benefit US citizens living in the United States.
Great. The next question comes from Ralph Kita Jr. And he just wants a little bit more information on land lists. He's from Ketchikan. Thanks, Ralph, for tuning in. So any news, Anthony, to share about the land lists?
We had a great, and I mentioned that we've been holding these events, and Matt, maybe you can point him to where the replay of the last policy event is located, because we dove into both with board of directors who are active in this, Richard Reinhardt, Nicole Hollingstad, and Jaylene Kukesh, our own policy expert, into progress around land lists. The very unfortunate passing of Congressman Don Young, which who was a significant proponent of that throughout his history, because this is a 40-year history where his priority of this effort never wavered. Our board's priority of this effort never wavered. We still have a bill in Congress that we are supporting and doubling down, knowing that we're going to have to really push to get this done in the wake of Congressman Young's passing. So that update provided a lot of information. We're still working hard. I don't believe we have any new assessment into the likelihood of it passing in this Congress or again being delayed, but we're going to do whatever we can, along with all of the landless reps who have their own body of oversight and leadership and who are really the ones driving this effort. We play the supporting role because it's their priority that's driving us to make it a priority. And so a lot of work to be done, but a lot of work that has been put into it to date. So that update, along with the Alaska Natives Without Land website, can provide a lot of additional information.
Yep, thank you, Anthony. I shared that in the chat for those of you guys following along on the Zoom link. The next question is regarding carbon credit. Can you provide an update on the carbon program?
So the carbon program has just been about as big of a win-win for us as I can imagine. It works for our logging transition, be able to find other income sources from our lands and our forests. The first two projects have all been paid out through 2021. The income, and part of the benefit of the program is the income comes all early in the life of the project, but we have to remember that it's a total 125-year commitment that we make to keep our forests intact with the same carbon stocking as they were when the original project was kicked off. So the income is coming. It's been a fantastic part of our current income source. We want to provide ways to use the early income to provide benefits to current and future generations, and the board has a lot of discussion around that. There are additional carbon opportunities that we are pursuing. They have different structures. They all aren't a 125-year time period. Some are shorter time periods. Some have different programming and regulations to follow. But we are reviewing that opportunity to pursue additional carbon projects. And hopefully you can find a lot of information, not only within the annual reports, but through other pieces of information, either the website and other sources.
Thank you. Well, it's springtime in Alaska, and that's definitely on the mind of Stephanie Swink Waddell. She's asking, will Sealaska get involved in the fight to protect herring? Kind of timely with that question.
Yeah. Again, when we go back to how important advocating for our traditional way of life, for our native rights, subsistence and herring has been top of mind. Again, this goes all the way. The board has a policy committee, or Naktu'at Waiawe committee, that focuses and prioritizes this effort. And so both the public policy committee chair, Barbara Blake, and Joe Nelson, our Sealaska board chair, they recently testified to Board of Fish in support of the Sitka Tribe of Alaska's efforts to protect this herring stock and allow our traditional harvest that has been going on ever and is so important at this time of year to continue as it has been, and to find ways to better manage that critical stock. That's not the only point. So we've testified before Board of Fish, we've supported Sitka Tribe, we've funded litigation by the Sitka Tribe of Alaska against the state of Alaska to improve the management of the herring stock, and will continue to support Sitka and all of our shareholders who utilize this critical resource. So yes, yes, and yes.
Great, thank you. We're going to take questions for the next 10 minutes. Thank you guys for joining us on your lunch hour. For those of you that are here in Alaska, and for those of you that are attending beyond, thank you for spending part of your day with us. So the next question is from Diane Kira. Would it be possible to allow shareholders to attend board meetings via Zoom? And I think that's a fairly straightforward question, but she's just asking, I think, Anthony, if we can, if the team could share some information about the upcoming meetings that we have planned. I think we're excited that with the things, COVID's sort of in the rear view, that we're going to be able to start meeting in person. The plan is for us to have an in-person annual meeting and have in-person meetings in Seattle, Juneau, and Anchorage, and we'll be sharing more information about those dates here coming up. Next question go ahead, Anthony.
Highlight the kind of after meeting recap of that activity that we're going to be sharing. And I think you and the comms team put out, or soon will put out a recap of the board meeting that is helpful to shareholders as well.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, the board met last week on April 7th and 8th. There's an overview that we'll put here in the chat so shareholders can find more information on what was discussed and the action items from the board meeting. All right, the next question is again from Levi Reinhardt. Thank you, Levi, for your interest in today's session. Why did the scholarship amounts change between 2020 and 2021?
So in 2020, the scholarship amount, the total dollar amount is pretty consistent from year to year. Right now, it's about 1.2 million, but you can see a change by how many applicants we have. And so the number of applicants also matters. And I believe in 2020, we had over 500 scholarship applicants. It was a really exciting moment for us to be able to supporting that many students pursuing their educational careers and career pathways. But any given year, it can either reduce or increase the number of applicants. So that's the main reason why you'll see a decrease or increase in the scholarship amount, is just the number of total applicants applying.
Great, thank you. Here's another question from Andrew White. Has Sealaska ever considered a subsistence harvesting stipend?
That we've looked at it in many different ways. We support our subsistence harvesters. SHI does a lot of work in this area. We'll continue to look for avenues, and if that's an idea, we'll keep track of that idea and see how we may be able to create that benefit as well. It's got to be able to be well vetted and understood, but we keep track of almost all shareholder ideas in terms of ways we can increase benefits.
Great, thank you for that question, Andrew. Here, the next question is coming from Cynthia Flood. When visiting one of our communities, do you try your best to utilize shareholder businesses?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. It doesn't always happen. The rental cars, the hotels, the catering businesses, where we buy the door prizes, our team is looking to support as many shareholder businesses as possible. And if we're not supporting one, maybe it's just because we don't know about it. And so, Matt, it may make sense to talk about the kind of upcoming business directory work that we're doing with Plinkett and Haida, and how we want not only our own staff to know all the shareholder businesses we could be utilizing, but everybody within our shareholder base and our communities to understand how to get a hold of and contact shareholder-owned businesses.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's extremely important for us to utilize the businesses that our shareholders own and operate. It's something, like you said, when we hold meetings or when we go into our communities, we make a concerted effort to make sure that we're giving back to the communities and giving business to the communities. So we got a question regarding blood quantum from Kara Fitzpatrick. Why is the blood quantum requirement 1/4%? And she says that she's a quarter and half Sioux, but her children are ineligible for Sealaska. That's something that we see quite often. So can you share a little bit more on the issue of blood quantum, Anthony?
Yeah, the reason goes all the way back to 1971. We're celebrating our 50th year anniversary, but the starting point of shareholder eligibility was put forward by the US government in 1971, and they maintained a quarter blood quantum requirement at that point in time. We haven't been able to overcome that. We've had a lot of information sessions on making sure we have conversations about what blood quantum means and doesn't mean to us as a people. We've had a lot of strong voices on both sides of the issue. We want those to continue. We know it's an issue we have to address, and we know the shareholder voice is the lead on helping us address this issue of the blood quantum eligibility.
We have time for about 2 or 3 more.
And that maybe, I mean, we've recorded the blood quantum events in the past, and maybe you can point out where you'd find some of the information and recordings on blood quantum that we've put out to date.
Yeah, we'll share that with you, Kara. Stay tuned for an email on that. The next question is from Stephanie Swink-Waddell again. Would Sealaska ever consider offering startup funds for shareholder-run businesses, like a small business incubator sort of thing?
That's a great question. We have a nonprofit partner called Spruce Root that supports shareholder businesses in region, because we have a lot of partners in region to focus in our traditional communities and homelands. But they provide business training, business plan creation, support with resources a business owner might require, and then they provide loan capital potentially to eligible businesses. We don't have the equity component, but that it is an area we know that could fill an important gap, and we'll continue to look at not only the opportunity to support shareholder businesses through Spruce Root, the technical assistance and the loans, but potentially to find avenues for additional support.
So we have time for one more question, and for those of you that asked questions and we weren't able to get around to them, we're going to provide a board recap, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible in writing for those of you that didn't get your questions answered. So the last question is related to the shareholder benefits. Is there any way possible that they could make the will and testament available in the app versus going to pay a notary public?
That one's very specific. We really work to make it as easy a process as possible, but know that there are steps that make it more difficult. We've tried to make it easier, but there are some requirements that just don't allow. So Matt, maybe we follow up and highlight the support that we can provide for testamentary and shareholder wills, and make sure that everybody knows the shareholder relations phone number and how to get a hold of our staff. Again, really work hard. Whatever the requirements are, they want to make it easier. And if we can change the requirements, we try and do that as well.
Thank you for that question, Eileen. That was from Eileen Osborne. Eileen, I'll put my email in the chat, and you could email me and I'll help you get, we'll try our best to get you an answer. So that concludes our Q&A portion. Anthony, if you can close us out in the minute that we have left.
Yeah, good. The board, myself, our communications team, our shareholder relations team are just really excited to be with our shareholders at live events. We know we've all been cautious through COVID, appropriately so. We want everybody to be safe. We're watching the numbers and COVID closely. But if we can have an event and use precautionary measures, we want to be with our shareholders. And I hope you see us trying to make that happen. So look out for information on the community events. Again, look for the annual report, and as well, continue to provide your suggestions on events that you would like to see in regard to shareholder areas of interest, and always appreciate everybody that provides their input to our shareholder surveys. They are such a big part of hearing from you. They really move us forward and push us to do better for our shareholders. So Gunak Chish, we will continue to survey and listen to our shareholders, and for all those that provide input, Gunak Chish, how Deutsche News,